Hi, hello, and welcome to yet another tutorial. It has been a while, so I do apologize if I am being a bit rusty, but we will start with something easy as those cups of trees. So if you want to fill your map with forests, woodlands, or any empty area, you can quickly create a couple of variations of those tree clumps and then add them to your finished map in a very quick way without looking at it too repetitive. So this is my autumn version, this is spring one when everything is green, and there is some sepia. I have no idea how to pronounce it, so I'm just gonna call it beige. So you can have the beige version as well to make it more in line with the color scheme that you're going to be using. You can also do black and white without any other colors added to it. Now, before we start, I do want to mention that I am recording in a new room, so there might be a bit of an echo, and there are some roadworks going outside of my house, so I am not sure if you are going to be hearing that. If you do, I do apologize. I will try to remove as much noise as possible. Okay, so for that we're going to Procreate, and I am going to create a canvas 1000 by 1000 pixels, so just a little square like so. Hopefully you can see it because it is very sunny in a studio today, and the camera does seem to be picking it up quite okay, but I will try to adjust it as much as I can while I edit that. In settings, we are turning drawing guides. This is just to give us an idea of the tree axis and to ensure that they are not too wonky, because if you then will try to mirror them, they might look bad. So just to make sure that they all very even and vertical. All the sunshine is just highlighting how dirty my iPad is. If your map line work is very clean, I would suggest using the same type of brush for your tree brush stamps. So something like Studio Pen, where you can have very clean lines without any texture whatsoever. Mine usually have a little bit of texture in them, so I am going to choose 6B pencil from sketching menu on Procreate. And I will use roughly around 15, 16 pixels size of it. Now on layer 1 in color black, if you double click on the bottom of the wheel, it will automatically select the true black. If you can't see the wheel, make sure that you choose disc over here. So with the 6B pencil selected, on the first layer and the only one that we currently have, I will just draw some lines. And that will give me basis of where I want the trees to be. So my one tall one will be here. Next to it will be a little bit of a shorter one. There will be a short one here, very squat ones, and a bit oval there. And just to tie it all off, I will add one tall again here. Now don't worry if it looks a bit wonky, because this is just a sketch layer and we will be overlapping it. See how that didn't turn out very well? Let's try again. Let's try to make them as symmetrical as possible. So this one's much better, just maybe slightly over here. And that will be the trunk of it. And on this one, I am going to add an oval one. And again, the trunk will be here. That should be okay for now. We will create a new layer and reduce the opacity of the sketch one. And on the new layer with the same brush, we will add a bit more details to the tree crowns. So this one, just do a motion as you would draw clouds, as when you were a kid, and you know those rounded clouds that we were doing, looking like a little sheep. That's exactly the line that we're looking for. Remove any overlapping lines that you can see between the trees. You can make your sketch layer a bit more detailed if that does help. So if you want, you can use this one as a secondary sketch layer and then add the details on the third layer that will be used later on for the creation of the brush. Okay, now I'm going to switch off sketch layer, and in the arrow menu I will be flipping it horizontally to make sure that none of the trees are leaning to any of the sides. Now I don't like how this one is not uniform, and I will fix that side now. So just make it slightly more chubby on this side. Yeah, that looks better. Don't be too detailed, because in the end you won't see that much detail in the finished piece. On the new layer we will be adding a bit more details to the trees to ensure that they look a bit more 3D instead of 2D, and just to highlight the shape of them. Whenever the line goes in, like so, in those moments we will create extra lines, and those don't have to be large or any specific. Literally just add any line across from each other. Make sure that they're slightly different lengths so they don't look too uniform as well. And that's it. That's all you do for the tree. Again, on the finished map you won't see that many details. You can add more if you want, but usually they're very tiny, like I showed you at the beginning, and you won't see that much of your work that you've put into those visible. So on this ones I'm just gonna add slightly longer lines, and you don't need to add them for all of those lines as well, so use your judgment as to where you want to add them and whether you want to make them shorter and longer as well. That looks okay. Now the last thing that we're going to add is the shadow. Trees usually do have a shadow on the bottom underneath them, depending from which side the sun hits it. When you do the shading of the mountains, in my case, for example, you can see that the darker shade is on the left and the brighter shade is on the right. The same goes for trees. In this case, the sun is hitting from right to the left, but if on your map you've already done some work and the shading is from left to right, make sure that you do the opposite of what I'm going to show you now. So because my map has the source of the light from this side, I am going to flip my canvas 90 degrees, and I'm going to add shadow for the trees with the slightly longer side on the left hand side. And that looks a bit too long, but you see what I mean. So when the sun is hitting it from the right, it will create longer shadow on the left hand side and just a little bit on the right. Try that again, just a little bit smaller. Like so. And now we're going to fill everything in, including the trunks. Same for here. You can see the right hand side, but we can make slightly longer left side. On this one, you pretty much can't see any of the shadows, but we will add just a line for uniformity. Voila! So this looks good for me. I'm going to merge the outline with the detail layer into one, and I will switch off the drawing guide because we no longer need it. Now with the layer selected, we are going to invert the colors, and before I do that, let me just change background to something like grayish, so you will see the exact change that process will do. Invert, and it changes into white. Now as you can see, because we've used heavily textured brush, that texture then translates to your finished piece. Again, if your line work is very clean, those lines also should look very clean. Now we're going to copy the layer, and to make our life easier, we will use existing stamp brush that we can duplicate and copy all the settings straight away without us doing too much work. For this purpose, we're going to go to spray paint, and on the very bottom you have drip. If you slide it to the left, you can duplicate it. And now we have two instances of the same brush. If you click on the duplicated one, it will take you to the settings. In shape, press on edit, import and paste. We've already copied our canvas, so it should be available to be pasted into here like so. Press done when you're happy with that, and this will change into your cups of trees. Now you can obviously continuously draw it. If you do, I would recommend adjusting the spacing to a bit more, and when you're happy with that, you can press done. Now to test it out, we can switch off the layer with the brush, choose our newly created brush, which is the Drip 5 copy. You can change the name if you want. If you go into the brush and about it, you can change the name here if you want to. And now we got a highlight of how that brush will look like. Let me make it slightly smaller, just 20. Here you go. And with this, you already created one of the varieties that you can mix and match later on in your finished project, adding a lot of different types. And like I said, I will show you in the next few videos how to make those pine trees as well. So the cooler the climate, the more pine trees will most likely pop up, but it will add more variety to your finished piece as well. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comments if you have any questions or if you got stuck in any of the steps. Thank you for supporting this channel and for being here. Have fun creating, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!